Hi, so I just have a few quick notes for you. First, I just wanted to mention that I'm really happy with the way the discussion forum has been going. I think we've developed a nice sense of camaraderie. Everyone seems to be really engaged with each other and pushing each other to think of rescue in different ways, and everyone brings a different angle to the table. And so I think that's been particularly fruitful. So I'd like to continue to see that. I know sometimes it's difficult in an online class, and I think everyone has really sort of overcome that with leaps and bounds. So I hope that we continue to see that over the course of the next several weeks. So just really quickly, this week we will be shifting gears. We have been looking at the ways that scholars have attempted to categorize rescue efforts to sort of understand what it was, or rescue motivations, what it was that would make a person take such a risk. We've looked at Fogelman, we have looked at Henry, Paxson, Tech, and I think we can all agree that it's very, very complicated. Trying to fit these complex people, these complex actions into nice, neat little categories doesn't really work. It's a lot more complicated, and so it becomes a little problematic. Not that their efforts are not important, right? That's how we understand things, to analyze it, to categorize it. So I think it's very, very important that they have done the work that they've done, but I think it also points out for all of us that these motivations are incredibly, incredibly complex. And so we'll sort of continue to look back at these motivations and think about what motivates some of the rescuers that we'll look at over the course of the semester. But we're going to switch gears now and look at the ways that rescue played out on the ground. So this week we will be looking at both how rescue and aid played out on the ground in the camps and the ghettos, but we're also going to look at the ways, again, scholars deal with this subject. And so specifically we're going to look at the ways scholars use their sources. So it hasn't been until fairly recently that historians have felt comfortable to use testimonies, Holocaust survivor testimonies, extensively. In the past, it was thought that they were too problematic because of the emotional nature of the subject, memory, that somehow they were more biased than other sources. And I mean, we do have to be aware when we're using these sources that there are issues, right? Just like any other source. But at the end of the day, all of the sources that historians are using are made by people, right? When we keep records, when we write, newspaper articles, any of the things that any of the sources historians use, they're written by human beings who choose to include certain information, choose to exclude certain information. They often, have a bias, or they see things a certain way. And so we have to be careful with all of the sources that we use. I don't think that Holocaust survivor testimonies are, particularly troublesome. And we also sometimes have issues of, we want to put these testimonies on a pedestal, right? Like we sometimes have a hard time looking at them as historical sources because, these are Holocaust survivors. And sometimes it will make people a little bit uncomfortable with, like this idea that they're questioning their experience. I'm not going to ask you to question somebody's experience. I'm going to ask you to think about sources, think about how they get used, and think about ways that we can, put them together with other types of sources to construct a narrative. And so to get everybody thinking about that this week, while we also look at how rescue plays out on the ground, I would like you to read in a specific order. So if first you can look at the Grinberg, that will give you context. It'll just give you some very basic context about conditions in the ghetto. And I think that will be helpful. And it also gives you some idea of how people respond to the conditions in the ghetto, because he starts out with his sort of narrative, but then he also uses accounts from people who were living there at the time. So he puts the sources together. And so I think that will be useful to give you kind of a big picture. So when you're done reading the Grinberg, if you could then move on to the Omir Bartov essay. And he's going to talk about the use of Holocaust survivor testimonies and some of the issues that historians have had. And he's going to make an argument. And I think it's an important argument. And so I want everybody to sort of really read that fairly carefully. And so after you read the Bartov, then you'll watch, it's a really short interview. It's called The Angel of Belsen. And so I want you to watch this woman's, this rescuer, she was actually interned in the ghetto, but this woman's account of her experience of providing aid to Jewish children who were interned in the ghetto. And then you're going to follow that by reading the Lubliner essay, and sort of look at the ways that they're both talking about the same experience. Lubliner was one of those children that the Angel of Belsen is talking about. And so I want you to look at the ways that they both remember this experience. And we're gonna spend a little time talking about sources, how we use sources, and some of the issues and some of the pitfalls, but also the actual, like the real tangible benefit of using the source of using Holocaust survivor testimonies. So I think that will be interesting to sort of unpackage that this week. And it's something that we'll continue to revisit throughout the rest of the semester. I'm a strong advocate of using survivor testimonies. They're the primary type of source that I used in my dissertation. So I'm not criticizing the use of Holocaust survivor testimonies. I just want us to all to just sort of think about the debate and about some of the issues that we would actually we actually have to think about with any type of source. So after you read those, then we also will start reading the Anita Lobel book. So you have it's not a huge amount of reading this week because you do have a paper, your first essay due at the end of the unit. So if you can submit that at the close of the week 3 unit, there is a button in the bottom of the weekly unit that you can submit your assignment through. If you have any problem with that, you can just go ahead and email it to me. That's fine too, whatever is the easiest. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments and to discussing with you on the forum and to seeing those papers. So have a good week.